Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling a classic, really digging into a story you probably think you know inside out. Robert Louis Stevenson's The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
That's right. And we've heard the call. You want a detailed, almost forensic, chapter-by-chapter look at this thing. Because, the titles become shorthand for duality, right?
Absolutely. Everyone gets the basic idea. Jekyll, Hyde, transformation.
But the actual book, the slow burn mystery, the way Stevenson builds it through the eyes of the lawyer, Utterson, the sheer psychological depth that often gets lost.
So that's our mission today. We're using the text itself as our guide. We'll trace the narrative thread, really get under the skin of the characters, especially Utterson and Jekyll, and explore exactly how this respectable life spiraled into, well, pure evil.
We're aiming to cover every key detail, every significant moment as Stevenson laid it out. So you'll come away with a really solid grasp of the whole story, start to finish.
And fittingly, our journey starts not with the doctor, not with the monster, but with the man who acts as our guide through this murky Victorian world, Mr. Utterson. Okay, so let's really get into Utterson. He's our main viewpoint character, our investigator, Mr. Gabriel John Utterson.
Yeah, and Stevenson gives us such a vivid, contradictory picture right from the start. A man of a rugged countenance that was never lighted by a smile, cold, scanty, and embarrassed in discourse, backward in sentiment.
Doesn't exactly sound like the life of the party.
Not at all. But then Stevenson adds, he's lean, long, dusty, dreary, and yet somehow lovable. That somehow lovable is crucial. There's something solid there.
And his personality.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about restraint, isn't it? Almost extreme restraint.
Oh, completely. He's austere with himself. The book mentions he drinks gin when he's alone, specifically to mortify a taste for vintages. He actively denies himself pleasure.
Wow. Okay, so he avoids the theater, even though he enjoys it. He's policing his own desires constantly.
Exactly. Which you could argue makes him a fascinating mirror, in a way, to Jekyll. A different kind of repression, perhaps a more socially acceptable kind, but repression nonetheless.
That's a great point. But while he's hard on himself, he's tolerant of others.
Yeah, the text says he has an approved tolerance for others. He's often the last reputable friend for downgoing men. People sinking into disgrace, they still talk to Utterson.
So he's kind of a safe harbor for secrets.
Precisely. He doesn't judge others harshly, even if he holds himself to this incredibly rigid standard. He even seems, the text hints, a little envious of the high pressure of spirits involved in their misdeeds.
Interesting. So he's fascinated by the very things he denies himself.
Which makes him the perfect person to stumble into Jekyll's dark secret. He's respectable, discreet, but also deep down curious about the darker side of life.
And his main social outlet seems to be these Sunday walks.
Right, with his distant relative, Richard Enfield, Mr. Well-known man about town.
And these walks sound incredibly dull, often silent.
Yeah, the book says they said nothing, look singularly dull, but for both men, these walks were the chief jewel of each week. It shows this profound emotional reserve.
This quiet, stable routine. It's the perfect calm before the storm, really.
Exactly. It sets the baseline of normality that's about to be shattered. Hashtag 1.2, the story of the door and the first appearance of Hyde.
And it's on one of these very walks that the first crack appears. They pass a particular building.
Mm-hmm. They're in a nice part of London, prosperous, clean shops, fresh paint. But then, smack in the middle of it, there's this one building that just feels wrong.
A certain sinister block of building, it says. It juts out, shows a blind forehead of discolored wall, and crucially, it has this one door.
Yes, just the door. No bell, no knocker. It looks battered, neglected, blistered, and disdained. Tramps hang around there. Kids have scratched drawings on it. It's a clear symbol of neglect and secrecy right in the middle of respectability.
And seeing this door triggers a memory for Enfield. This is the core of Chapter 1, the story of the door.
Right. Enfield tells Utterson about something he saw late one night, or rather, early one morning, about 3 o'clock.
He saw a man, a small man, literally run into a little girl at a street corner.
But it wasn't just bumping into her. Enfield says the man trampled calmly over the child's body and left her screaming on the ground.
Trampled calmly. That phrase is horrifying.
It really is. It's the detachment, the lack of hesitation. Enfield compares him to some damned juggernaut. Not malicious glee, just utter indifference to the suffering cause.
And the reaction of the people who witnessed this.
This is key to understanding Hyde. Everyone there, the girl's family, Enfield, even a doctor who arrived, normally a very unemotional sawbones type, felt an immediate visceral wave of hatred.
They wanted to kill him.
Enfield says the doctor turned sick and white with the desire to kill him. It wasn't just anger, it was this profound, almost physical revulsion. Hyde seems to provoke this instinctual loathing in everyone he meets.
So what did they do?
Well, they collared the man. Hyde. He was perfectly cool about it. But Enfield sensed he was also frightened. Frightened of their sheer hatred.
He carried it off really like Satan, Enfield says.
Yeah. And to avoid a scene, a scandal that would ruin the man's name, they basically strong-armed him into paying the family compensation, £100.
It was a lot of money back then.
A huge sum. And here's the twist. Hyde doesn't have it on him. He uses a key, goes into that sinister door, and comes back out with £10 in gold and a check for the rest.
And the check
Is signed by a very well-respected man, a prominent man. Enfield checks the signature himself. He admits he'd rather not name him, but confirms he's the very pink of the proprieties.
But they don't say Jekyll's name yet.
Not yet. Enfield's immediate thought is blackmail, that this Hyde fellow is extorting money from the respectable signatory. He even calls the place Blackmail House.
So that story plants the seed. The name Hyde, the connection to that strange door, and the link to a respectable, unnamed man. Utterson is hooked.
Deeply troubled and hooked. Yes. Hashtag 1.3, the will, and the search for Mr. Hyde.
So Utterson goes home, and that night, he digs out a document that's been bothering him. This is chapter 2.
Right. Dr. Jekyll's will. It's been like an eyesore to him.
And the terms are unusual, to say the least.
Extremely unusual. It stipulates that if Dr. Henry Jekyll dies, or if he should disappear or unexplained absence for any period exceeding 3 calendar months,
Then everything, his entire fortune, goes to one Edward Hyde.
Exactly. Before hearing Enfield's story, Utterson just thought it was eccentric, maybe unprofessional, maybe Jekyll was mad.
But now, knowing Hyde trampled a child.
Now it's sinister. Utterson fears disgrace for his friend Jekyll. He suspects some deep, dark secret, maybe that old sin Enfield speculated about. Blackmail seems the most likely explanation.
So his first step is to talk to someone else who knows Jekyll well.
Dr. Lanyon. Hasty Lanyon, another old friend, part of their little circle. But Lanyon represents the other side of medicine, the rational, materialist side.
He's described as a hearty, healthy, dapper, red-faced gentleman. Very conventional.
Very. And Lanyon reveals something important. He and Jekyll haven't really been close for about 10 years. They had a falling out.
Over what?
Over science. Lanyon says Jekyll began to go wrong in mind. He dismisses Jekyll's more recent scientific explorations as unscientific balderdash.
So it's a professional disagreement, not a personal scandal.
According to Lanyon, yes. He sees Jekyll's work as fanciful, maybe even delusional. And crucially, Lanyon says he's never even heard of Edward Hyde.
So Lanyon's no help in identifying Hyde. Utterson's back to square one.
Right, so he decides he needs to see this Hyde for himself. He starts haunting the area around that sinister door. He thinks, if he be Mr. Hyde, I shall be Mr. Seek.
And eventually he gets his chance. He confronts Hyde as he's unlocking the door.
And the description of Hyde here is absolute chilling and central to the whole book.
Utterson sees him as pale and dwarfish. He gives an impression of deformity without any nameable malformation.
That's the key phrase. It's not what is wrong with his appearance, it's that something is fundamentally wrong. It's an aura, a feeling he projects.
Utterson struggles to describe it. Hyde has a displeasing smile, a sort of murderous mixture of timidity and boldness.
And Utterson's reaction is pure instinct. He feels hitherto unknown disgust, loathing, and fear. It's visceral, it's immediate.
He concludes the man seems hardly human. Something troglodytic, shall we say.
That word troglodytic is loaded. Remember, this is post-Darwin. The idea of evolutionary regression, of a primitive, less evolved self lurking beneath the surface. Stevenson is tapping right into that contemporary anxiety. Hyde isn't just evil, he's like a step backward in human development.
So Utterson now has a face, or rather, an impression, to go with the name and the evil reputation.
Yes. And he confirms one last detail with Jekyll's butler, Poole. Does Hyde have access to the house?
Poole confirms it. Hyde has a key, uses the old dissecting room door, the sinister door, and all the servants have orders to obey him.
So Hyde has free run of the place, at least the laboratory part. Utterson leaves, convinced Jekyll is entangled with this creature, possibly through blackmail rooted in the ghost of some old sin. But the feeling Hyde evoked, that goes beyond simple blackmail. Hashtag 1.4 Jekyll's defense, chapter 3.
All right, so Utterson feels he has to confront Jekyll directly. This happens in chapter 3. Dr. Jekyll was quite at ease.
Yes, after a dinner party at Jekyll's house, Stevenson first paints a picture of Jekyll himself.
How's he described?
As the complete opposite of Hyde, physically and socially. A large, well-made, smooth-faced man of 50 with every mark of capacity and kindness. Charming, respectable, perhaps a touch sly in his look, but overall, the picture of Victorian success.
A perfect gentleman.
Exactly. But when Utterson stays behind and brings up the will and mentions Hyde,
The mask slips.
immediately, Jekyll turns pale to the very lips and a blackness comes into his eyes. He becomes agitated, defensive.
Does he explain Hyde?
Not really. He calls it a very strange one, this situation with Hyde. He admits he has a very great interest in poor Hyde.
Poor Hyde. After what Enfield saw. After Utterson met him.
It's jarring, isn't it? Jekyll tries to downplay it, insists he can get rid of Hyde the moment I choose. He's trying to project control even as his physical reaction betrays deep anxiety.
He's basically telling Utterson to butt out.
Pretty much. He asks Utterson, as his lawyer and friend, to just let it go, to trust him.
But then he asks for something specific. A promise.
Yes. This is crucial. Jekyll makes Utterson promise that if he, Jekyll, should be taken away, Utterson will ensure Hyde receives his rights, his inheritance, as per the will.
That puts Utterson in a terrible position.
Awful. He's now bound by his word to help this creature he instinctively loathes, all for the sake of his friend who is clearly hiding something terrible. Utterson leaves more worried than ever. Jekyll's reassurances have only deepened the mystery and the sense of impending doom.
Okay, so things quiet down for a while. Almost a year passes. Then the story explodes again in Chapter 4, the Carew murder case.
Yeah, if the trampling incident was a shock, this is an earthquake. It escalates the horror dramatically.
The setting is very atmospheric again.
Absolutely. A clear, moonlit night in London. A maidservant is sitting at her window, feeling romantic and peaceful.
And she sees an encounter on the street below.
Yes. An elderly gentleman, very distinguished looking, an aged, beautiful gentleman with white hair, stops and politely addresses a smaller man.
Sir Danvers Carew, a member of Parliament, Utterson later learns.
Right. And the smaller man, the maid, recognizes him instantly. It's Mr. Hyde, who had visited her master once.
And Hyde's reaction to being spoken to.
Utter sheer, unprovoked fury. He listens impatiently, then suddenly bursts out in a great flame of anger, stamping his foot, brandishing his cane.
And then he attacks Carew.
Viciously, he clubs Sir Danvers to the ground with this heavy cane, and then, this is horrific, he jumps on the body, raining down blows with ape-like fury. The maid hears the bones shatter. She faints from the horror.
Ape-like fury. There's that connection again to something primal, inhuman.
Exactly. It's not just murder. It's overkill. It's a frenzy of violence, completely disproportionate to any possible provocation. It reinforces Hyde as this force of pure destructive impulse.
What clues are left at the scene?
Two crucial ones. First, Sir Danvers Carew is carrying a sealed, stamped envelope addressed to Mr. Utterson.
Which brings the lawyer directly into the police investigation.
Right. He's called to identify the body. The second clue is the murder weapon, or half of it.
A cane broke.
Yes.
Yeah.
Half of a heavy, particularly nice walking cane is found near the body, and Utterson recognizes it immediately.
It was his.
No, it was one he had given to Henry Jekyll years before.
Oh, wow. The connection is undeniable now.
Undeniable and deeply damning. The maid's description of the attacker, particularly small and particularly wicked-looking, matches Hyde perfectly.
So Utterson and the police inspector Newcomen, they go to Hyde's address, the one Utterson got from him earlier.
Yes, they head to Soho, described as a dismal, foggy district, like a city in a nightmare. The fog itself, that chocolate-colored pall, feels symbolic of the moral obscurity they're entering.
In Hyde's rooms.
Surprisingly, they're furnished with luxury and good taste, clearly paid for by Jekyll, but the place has been ransacked, papers burned in the fireplace, drawers left open.
He fled in a hurry.
Definitely. And they find two vital pieces of evidence. One is the butt end of the green checkbook, partly burned.
Suggesting financial ties still, maybe trying to destroy evidence.
And the other,
Well,
behind the door, is the other half of the broken cane.
case closed, basically. They know who did it.
They know it was Hyde, using Jekyll's cane, but Hyde himself vanished, disappeared completely, leaving only that disturbing description and the lingering sense of unexpressed deformity. Hashtags tag 2.2 the forgery, and the growing suspicion. Chapter 5.
So Hyde is gone, but the connection to Jekyll is stronger than ever. Utterson goes to see Jekyll again. This is Chapter 5, Incident of the Letter.
Yes. He finds Jekyll in his cabinet, the room above the laboratory which has its own entrance from the street. Jekyll looks terrible, deathly sick.
Does he confess anything?
He swears vehemently that he's finished with Hyde. I am done with him in this world, he says. He is safe. He is quite safe. Meaning Hyde won't be caught, but also implying Hyde won't trouble Jekyll anymore.
Is Utterson convinced?
Not entirely. Jekyll seems desperate. He gives Utterson a letter, supposedly written by Hyde to Jekyll.
What does the letter say?
It's short, rather oddly worded, basically saying Jekyll shouldn't worry about him, as he has means of escape he can rely on.
And Jekyll says he burned the envelope.
Yes, claiming it had no postmark, suggesting it was delivered by hand.
That sounds suspicious.
Very. Utterson also asks Jekyll point blank if it was Hyde who dictated the terms of the will, that disappearance clause. Jekyll just nods, looking sick. Utterson then connects the dots in the performance. Hyde planned this. Maybe he meant to murder you, Utterson tells Jekyll.
But the real bombshell comes later, doesn't it? When Utterson discusses the letter with his head clerk.
Mr. Guest, yes. Guest is described as a handwriting expert, a student of graphology.
Utterson shows him Hyde's letter, just asking his opinion on the handwriting.
And then, as if by chance, a dinner invitation from Dr. Jekyll happens to be on the desk. Guest compares the two. He immediately notices a singular resemblance. The two hands are strikingly similar. Guest states they are, in many points, identical, only differently sloped.
Identical handwriting, just slanted differently.
Exactly. The implication is staggering. Hyde didn't write this letter. Jekyll did. Jekyll forged a letter from the murderer to cover his tracks.
Utterson is horrified. He locks the note away. Henry Jekyll forged for a murderer, he thinks.
And remember, Utterson later checks with Poole, the butler. Did any messenger bring a letter that day?
Poole says no.
Confirming the letter must have been written inside the cabinet, written by Jekyll himself, pretending to be Hyde. The cover-up is becoming incredibly complex and disturbing. Why forge it? Why not just destroy it?
It suggests panic, maybe, or a desperate attempt to maintain the illusion of separation.
Possibly. Or maybe Jekyll's control, his ability to think rationally, is already starting to fray under the pressure. It's a clumsy forgery, easily detected. Hashtag 2.3, The Retreat and the Shadow of Death. Chapter 6.
Okay, so Hyde has vanished. The murder investigation stalls. And for a while, it seems like Jekyll might actually be free. Chapter 6, Incident of Dr. Lanyon.
Yes, there's this brief period, about 2 months, where Jekyll comes out of his shell. He renews friendships, including with Utterson and Lanyon. He's seen everywhere, involved in charity, even seems distinguished for religion.
Like he's trying to make amends, or rebuild his old life.
It certainly looks that way. Utterson feels hopeful, like the darkness has lifted.
But it doesn't last.
No. Suddenly, Jekyll retreats again. Utterson tries to visit, but he's turned away. Poole says the doctor is confining himself mostly to the cabinet.
Concerned, Utterson goes to see Dr. Lanyon.
And the change in Lanyon is shocking. Utterson finds him dramatically altered. The hardy, red-faced man is gone.
How is he described now?
Pale, visibly older, balder, much thinner. He looks like a man who has his death warrant written legible upon his face. It's not just physical illness. Utterson senses a deep-seated terror of the mind.
And Lanyon knows why he's dying.
He says so explicitly. He declares himself a doomed man, says he's had a shock from which he'll never recover.
And when Utterson mentions Jekyll,
Lanyon reacts with extreme emotion. He forbids the name Jekyll to be mentioned. I am quite done with that person, he says, and I beg that you will spare me any allusion to one whom I regard as dead.
Wow, regards him as dead. That's intense. What could have caused such a complete breakdown between old friends?
Utterson doesn't know yet. Lanyon refuses to explain the shock. It's clearly connected to Jekyll, but the details remain hidden.
Utterson writes to Jekyll, asking what happened.
And Jekyll's reply is long, mysterious, and deeply unsettling. He acknowledges an incurable quarrel with Lanyon, but says he can't explain it. He insists he must now live in extreme seclusion.
Why?
He writes that he has brought upon himself a punishment and a danger that I cannot name. He says if he is the chief of sinners, he is also chief of sufferers. It's a confession of guilt, but wrapped in enigma.
He's choosing isolation, voluntarily shutting himself away.
Which suggests he knows he can't trust himself in the world anymore. The good Jekyll is actively imprisoning himself.
And then Lanyon dies.
Yes, within a few weeks. Before his death, he gives Utterson a sealed envelope. Marked. Private, for the hands of G.J. Utterson alone, and in case of his predeceased to be destroyed unread. And inside that, another sealed packet marked, not to be opened till the death or disappearance of Dr. Henry Jekyll.
That word again. Disappearance. The same word from Jekyll's will.
Exactly. Utterson is deeply disturbed. Lanyon, the rationalist, the skeptic, has now implicitly endorsed the bizarre terms of Jekyll's will by using that specific word. Whatever Lanyon saw, it was so profound it shattered his worldview and made him accept the possibility of Jekyll simply vanishing.
So Utterson now holds two keys to the mystery: Jekyll's will and Lanyon's narrative, but he can't use either yet.
No, he has to wait. The suspense is building, but the truth remains locked away. The tension keeps ratcheting up. In Chapter 7, Incident at the Window, Utterson gets another horrifying glimpse of what's happening to Jekyll.
This is during another walk with Enfield. They seem destined to witness these things together.
It seems so. They happen to pass the court behind Jekyll's house, the one where the laboratory building is. They look up at the windows.
And Jekyll is there.
Yes, sitting at one of the windows, which is half open. He looks incredibly sad, like a disconsolate prisoner. Utterson calls up to him.
They try to coax him out for a walk.
Yeah, they suggest the fresh air might do him good. Jekyll smiles faintly, says he'd like to. But no, it is quite impossible. I dare not.
I dare not. He's afraid to leave the cabinet.
That's the implication. But then, as they're talking, something happens right before their eyes.
The transformation.
The beginning of one. The text says the smile was struck out of his face and succeeded by an expression of such abject terror and despair as froze the very blood of the two gentlemen below.
Oh my God. They see it starting.
They see the look of pure horror seize Jekyll's features. It's instantaneous, involuntary, and then the window is slammed shut.
They must have been horrified.
Utterson says they were speechless. They walked away in silence for a while, then exchanged a look of answering horror. Utterson whispers, "God forgive us, God forgive us."
This is different from just knowing something's wrong.
Yeah.
They've seen it now. Seen the terror on Jekyll's faces.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, takes hold.
Exactly. It's no longer just suspicion or strange behavior. It's visible proof that something monstrous is happening to Jekyll, something he can't control. Hashtag 3.2, Poole's desperation. Chapter 8.
That terrifying moment at the window really sets the stage for the climax, doesn't it? Chapter 8, The Last Night.
It absolutely does. The final act begins with Poole, Jekyll's butler, showing up at Utterson's door late one night.
And Poole is clearly distressed.
Very much so. Utterson describes him as looking pale and frightened. Poole says simply, "I think there's been foul play." He's convinced something terrible has happened to his master.
What makes him think that?
He takes Utterson back to Jekyll's house. The place is gripped by fear. The other servants are huddled together, terrified. Poole leads Utterson to the inner door of the cabinet.
The room where Jekyll has been secluded.
Yes. Poole calls out, announcing Mr. Utterson. A voice answers from inside saying, "Tell him I cannot see anyone."
But it's not Jekyll's voice.
Utterson notes it's changed, muffled somehow. But Poole, who served Jekyll for 20 years, is adamant. "Sir," he whispers to Utterson, "that thing in there is not my master."
He believes Jekyll is already dead. Murdered.
Poole believes his master was made away with about 8 days earlier, which was when he heard Jekyll cry out, "Upon the name of God." Since then, it's been this other presence in the cabinet.
What else has been happening?
Poole describes a desperate, ongoing search for a particular drug, a chemical salt. The person inside has been sending Poole out constantly to chemists all over London with notes demanding a specific sample.
And rejecting everything Poole brings back.
Yes, throwing the samples down, sending more notes, scribbled pleas like, "For God's sakes, find me some of the old." Poole says the person inside seems desperate, may be in pain or distress.
It sounds like an addict, desperately seeking a fix, but unable to find the right stuff.
That's exactly the sense you get. This being is trapped, dependent on this specific chemical, and its supply has run out or changed.
And has Poole actually seen the person in the cabinet since that cry 8 days ago?
Just once, briefly. He caught a glimpse of the figure crossing the laboratory yard towards the stairs.
And it wasn't Jekyll.
Poole swears it wasn't. He describes seeing a figure, masked or somehow disguised, but definitely smaller than Dr. Jekyll. A dwarf, he calls it. When it saw Poole, it cried out like a rat and darted back inside.
Like a rat.
And Poole adds it had much of the same bigness and the same quick, light way with it as Mr. Hyde. Poole's conclusion is simple and terrifying. Jekyll has been murdered, and Hyde is hiding in the cabinet, maybe trying to find more of the drug that transforms him.
Or maybe the drug that keeps him from transforming back.
That's the implication Poole draws. He's convinced Jekyll is dead, and the murderer is trapped in there. Hashtag 3.3, breaking down the door.
Poole's testimony is pretty convincing. Utterson has to act.
He does. He decides they have to break down the cabinet door. He grabs a poker for defense. Poole gets an axe from the laboratory. Utterson feels a sense of grim inevitability, saying the evil was sure to come of this whole affair.
Before they smash the door, do they hear anything from inside?
Yes, a strange, low sound. Utterson describes it as weeping, like a woman or a lost soul. It's a sound of utter misery and despair, not anger or threat.
That's unexpected. Not the sound of triumphant murder.
No. It complicates Poole's theory immediately. Utterson calls out, demands Jekyll open the door. The voice inside cries back, "Utterson, for God's sake, have mercy."
And Utterson recognizes the voice now.
Instantly. And his reaction is crucial. He says to Poole, that's not Jekyll's voice, it's Hyde's. He knows in that moment who is inside.
So they break down the door.
5 blows with the axe, and the lock bursts, the door falls inward.
And what do they find inside?
The cabinet is quiet, orderly, a fire burning, tea things laid out. But in the middle of the room,
The body.
the body of a man, sorely contorted and still twitching. He's dressed in clothes far too large for him, Jekyll's clothes. There's a crushed glass vial in his hand and the strong smell of kernels. Cyanide.
It's Hyde. Suicide.
Yes, Edward Hyde has killed himself.
But where is Jekyll?
They search everywhere. The cabinet, the laboratory, the back passages, the cellar, the yard. No trace of Dr. Henry Jekyll. Poole's conviction seems confirmed. The master must have been disposed of somewhere.
What other clues do they find in the cabinet?
Several significant things. They find the key to the laboratory's street door, the one Hyde used, but it's broken and rusted, lying on the flags. As if it hadn't been used in a long time, maybe since Jekyll tried to lock Hyde out after the Carew murder.
Interesting. What else?
They find one of Jekyll's pious religious books, but it's annotated with shocking, handwritten, startling blasphemies in Jekyll's own hand.
So the corruption was bleeding into Jekyll's own thoughts.
It seems so. There's also a large cheval glass, a full-length mirror, positioned so the person at the desk could see their reflection. Perhaps Jekyll or Hyde was watching the transformations.
Chilling. And the paperwork.
On the business table, there's a new version of Jekyll's will, hastily written, dated that very day. It leaves everything to Utterson, replacing Hyde's name.
So Jekyll was alive today, long enough to change the will.
Yes. And beside it, a brief note from Jekyll to Utterson. It tells him if he came too late to save Jekyll, he should read Lanyon's narrative first.
The one Utterson already has, sealed.
Exactly. And then Jekyll says, Utterson should read the Confession of Your Unworthy and Unhappy Friend, Henry Jekyll. A large packet containing this confession is also there on the table.
So Jekyll didn't just disappear. He planned for Utterson to find the full story.
It seems he wanted the truth to be known, at least by his friend and lawyer, after his end. The mystery is about to be fully unveiled.
Right, so Utterson now has the final pieces. Following Jekyll's instructions, he first reads Lanyon's narrative. This is chapter 9.
And this document finally explains why Lanyon was so profoundly shaken, why he died. It recounts a specific, terrifying event.
It starts with Lanyon receiving a letter from Jekyll.
An urgent, desperate letter sent by registered post. Jekyll pleads for help, saying, his life, my honor, my reason depend upon you.
What does Jekyll ask him to do?
Something very strange. He asks Lanyon to go to his house, break into the cabinet giving precise instructions, and retrieve a specific drawer.
A drawer containing
some powders in labeled packets, a file filled with a blood-red liquor, and a notebook containing a record of experiments. Lanyon is to take this drawer back to his own consulting room and wait for a messenger who will arrive at midnight.
Lanyon must have thought Jekyll's insane.
He did. He writes that he was sure Jekyll was suffering from cerebral disease, but the sheer desperation in the letter convinces him to follow the instructions, partly out of old friendship, partly out of curiosity.
So he gets the drawer, waits, and at midnight.
The messenger arrives. Lanyon describes him vividly. Small, wearing clothes enormously too large for him, just like Hyde's body was found.
It's Hyde.
Yes. Lanyon feels an instant mixture of disgustful curiosity and this strange, subjective disturbance just being in Hyde's presence. That signature effect again.
And Hyde is agitated.
Tremendously. Lanyon says he was on fire with somber excitement. He eagerly seizes the drawer Lanyon retrieved.
And then Hyde performs the experiment, right there in front of Lanyon.
Yes. He mixes some of the white powder with the red liquid in a graduated glass. Lanyon watches as the mixture bubbles, changes color from red to purple, then to a watery green.
It's like some kind of unholy chemistry demonstration.
Exactly. And then Hyde turns to Lanyon, his face grim. He offers Lanyon a choice.
A choice.
Hyde asks if Lanyon wants him to leave with the mixture, allowing Lanyon to remain ignorant, or Does Lanyon want to witness something that will stagger the unbelief of Satan?
A dramatic choice. What does Lanyon do?
Lanyon, despite his fear and scientific skepticism, is overcome by curiosity. He says he's come too far to turn back now. He chooses to see.
And then Hyde drinks the mixture.
He drinks it down in one gulp. What follows is graphically described: a cry, a stagger, gasping, clutching at the table. His whole body seems to swell. His face turns black. His features appear to melt and alter.
Lanyon is watching this happen.
Horrified, pale, half fainting, but watching. And then within moments, the process completes, and there stood Henry Jekyll.
Oh, wow. The full transformation, witnessed by the ultimate rationalist.
Yes. And Jekyll, now restored, apparently confessed everything to Lanyon, including that he, as Hyde, was the murderer of Sir Danvers Carew.
No wonder Lanyon was broken.
As Lanyon writes, the shock of seeing that physical impossibility combined with the moral horror of Jekyll's confession shattered his world. My life is shaken to its roots, he concludes. Sleep has left me. The deadliest terror sits by me at all hours. It was the sight of the impossible, the violation of natural law, that killed him. Hashtag 4.2 Henry Jekyll's full statement of the case, Chapter 10.
Okay, so Lanyon's narrative provides the how. Now finally, Utterson reads Jekyll's own confession. Chapter 10, Henry Jekyll's full statement of the case. This should give us the why.
Exactly. This is where Jekyll explains his motivations, his scientific journey, and his ultimate downfall, all in his own words.
How does he begin? Does he see himself as evil from the start?
Not exactly. He says he was born to a large fortune, had good qualities, and genuinely aspired to be respected and good. But he also had a gaiety of disposition, a tendency towards pleasures that he felt he had to hide to maintain his serious public image.
So a conflict between his desires and his reputation.
Precisely. He calls it a profound duplicity of life. He felt he had two sides: the upright, aspiring doctor and the hidden pleasure seeker. He wasn't necessarily a hypocrite in the usual sense. He says his aspirations were genuine, but his shame about his irregularities was intense.
And this internal conflict becomes the focus of his scientific work.
Yes. He became fascinated by the dual nature of man. He speculated that these two sides, the good and the evil, were separate entities somehow housed in the same body, the polar twins, he calls them.
And he believed he could physically separate them.
That became his transcendental goal. If he could isolate the two natures, he thought, life would be easier. The good side could pursue virtue without temptation, and the evil side could indulge itself without restraint or guilt, freeing the good side from responsibility.
A dangerous idea.
Incredibly dangerous. He searched for a drug, certain agents, that could shake the fortress of identity, allowing one nature to dominate the physical form temporarily.
And he found it. He describes the first transformation.
He does. He takes the potion. There's intense physical pain, a grinding in the bones, deadly nausea, but then it's followed by a feeling that's indescribably new and incredibly sweet.
Sweet.
Yes, a feeling of heady recklessness, freedom from conscience, a current of disordered sensual images. He felt younger, lighter, and instantly tenfold more wicked. He also noticed he was physically smaller.
Why smaller? Does he explain that?
Yes, and it's a key insight into his theory. He believed Hyde was smaller and younger because Jekyll's evil side had been repressed for so long. It was less developed, less exercised than his virtuous side, which had dominated his life for 50 years.
So Hyde is like the stunted, undeveloped part of him.
Initially, yes. But crucially, Hyde was pure evil. Unlike Jekyll, who was a mix, Hyde had no conscience, no remorse. That purity of evil, Jekyll theorizes, is what caused that instinctive revulsion in others.
But Jekyll himself didn't feel revulsion towards Hyde.
No. He writes that looking in the mirror at Hyde, he felt a leap of welcome. Because Hyde was him, just the purely evil part, liberated. It felt more express and single than the conflicted Jekyll.
So he embraces this dark side. He sets Hyde up with his own life.
He does. He arranges the house in Soho, gives Hyde his own name, establishes the bank account, creates the will, all to give Hyde freedom and immunity. Jekyll could indulge his darkest desires through Hyde, then simply drink the potion and return to his respectable life, laughing off any suspicion. Hyde was his impenetrable mantle.
He thought he had total control.
Yeah.
But there were warning signs early on.
Definitely. That first incident, the trampling of the child that Enfield witnessed, was Hyde acting on his own cruel impulses. Jekyll had to step in, provide the money, manage the situation. That should have been a huge red flag.
But the real turning point, the moment he realized he was losing control,
was waking up one morning as Hyde. He hadn't taken the potion. He went to sleep as Henry Jekyll and woke up in his own bed to see Hyde's lean, hairy hand on the covers.
the transformation happened spontaneously. without the drug.
Yes. Terrifyingly, Jekyll realized that Hyde, through being indulged, was growing stronger, fighting for dominance. The balance was shifting.
So what did he do? Did he stop?
He tried. He writes that he was horrified. He chose to stick with being Jekyll, renouncing Hyde. He threw away the key to the laboratory's back door, lived virtuously for 2 whole months.
But the craving came back.
It did. He describes his lower side, long-caged, beginning to growl for license. The repression made the desire stronger. In a moment of what he calls moral weakness, he took the potion again.
And this time Hyde came back worse.
Much worse. Jekyll says Hyde had been caged for so long he emerged with a more unbridled, a more furious propensity to ill. And that night, Hyde encountered Sir Danvers Carew.
Leading to the murder.
Yes. Jekyll describes it as utterly motiveless, just a surge of impatient fury at the old man's politeness. Hyde struck him down in a blind rage, enjoying the violence.
The murder must have terrified Jekyll.
It did. He was genuinely remorseful and horrified, both by the act and by the public manhunt for Hyde. He threw himself back into being Jekyll with renewed vigor, trying to suppress Hyde completely.
But it wasn't enough. There was another spontaneous change.
Yes. Sitting on a park bench in Regent's Park one day, feeling quite virtuous, he suddenly felt the change coming on again. In broad daylight, in public.
Oh, God. What did he do?
He realized Hyde was now a wanted murderer. If he changed fully there, he'd be caught and hanged. He desperately needed the potion to change back. That's when he wrote the frantic notes to Lanyon for help and later kept sending Poole out for the drugs.
And from that point on, the balance was permanently tipped.
Completely. It became harder and harder to change back to Jekyll, requiring double, even triple doses of the potion. And the spontaneous changes to Hyde became more frequent, almost uncontrollable. Jekyll was losing the battle.
And he finally figures out why the drug isn't working as well anymore.
Yes. This is the final tragic irony. He realizes his original batch of the chemical salt must have contained some unknown impurity. That accidental flaw was the secret ingredient that actually made the transformation work effectively.
The new, pure supplies he was desperately seeking were useless.
Exactly. The chemically pure salt didn't have the same effect. Perfection failed him. Only the flawed original could bridge the gap between his two natures. It's a powerful metaphor. Maybe perfect purity can't encompass the messy reality of human nature.
So he's trapped. He knows he can't get the right ingredients anymore.
He's trapped as Hyde, or risks becoming Hyde permanently at any moment. He's running out of the original salt. He writes his confession fueled by the last dose, knowing that soon Hyde will take over for good.
And he anticipates Hyde's reaction.
He expects Hyde, terrified of the gallows, will probably destroy the confession. He ends his statement with a chilling sense of finality. Here then, as I lay down the pen and proceed to seal up my confession, I bring the life of that unhappy Henry Jekyll to an end. What happens next, he says, concerns Hyde, not him.
And Hyde, true to his nature, chooses suicide over facing the consequences.
The final act of a creature driven by fear and base instinct, cornered like an animal. #outro.
Wow, what an ending. We've really followed the breadcrumbs, haven't we? From Utterson's first uneasy feelings through Lanyon's fatal discovery, right into the heart of Jekyll's own tortured confession.
It's such a masterclass in building suspense and psychological horror. And you see how Jekyll's quest wasn't just scientific curiosity, it was rooted in this desperate need to escape the burden of his own duality, his own imperfections.
He wanted freedom from guilt, but ended up a slave to his darkest impulses. That line about Hyde being knit to him closer than a wife, it's just devastating.
And it really speaks to the Victorian context, doesn't it? That intense pressure for outward respectability might have been the very thing that made Jekyll's internal struggle so unbearable, pushing him towards such a radical, disastrous solution. The denial was perhaps more dangerous than the desires themselves.
It makes you reconsider the whole idea.
Right.
It wasn't just a magic potion creating a monster. It was Jekyll's choice to unleash and indulge that part of himself, thinking he could control it.
Exactly. And that detail about Hyde being smaller initially, because Jekyll's evil side was less developed, that's fascinating when you think about the outcome.
Yeah, despite being the lesser part, the evil side ultimately proved stronger, more tenacious. It completely took over.
Which leaves us with a really unsettling final thought, doesn't it? If the good side requires constant effort, social pressure, and conscious maintenance, while the evil side, even when less developed, gains power so quickly once restraints are removed.
What does that suggest about, I don't know, the default setting? Is the darker side inherently stronger or just more liberated, more appealing in its freedom? once you strip away morality?
A profound and disturbing question to ponder from this incredible story. Is our carefully constructed goodness more fragile than we think?
Something to definitely mull over. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the dark corridors of Jekyll's soul. We'll see you next time.